Hey guys, Sam7 here, and welcome to another recap for the HRL Oval Season 2. Here we have round number 3, starting off with Portland Classic, and the first motos went down like this. Luke took the win for that first moto, Hunter second, Vulcan third, Slaunch fourth, Camby fifth. Couldn't really tell what was going to happen until the very end of the moto. That went for both motos pretty much, like just a lot of crazy battles on this track, and it was really hard to separate yourself from battles. So it was pretty hard to predict how things were going to go down until there was like a couple laps to go, because that was around the time when the positions would start to get settled out. And until those positions got settled out, yeah, this track, it was just tough to separate yourself from the rest of the field. That's how it went for Moto 1. A little bit different than what we saw in Week 1. Real Deal and Detail missing this week, and Hunter ended up making it for this one. We also had Shift showing up as well, so of course those two drivers missing and these two drivers showing up, making things a little bit different. For Moto 2, Luke was able to complete the sweep here for Portland. Hunter ended up coming in second again, really close. Had a really good shot at the win, like genuinely, he was super close. Went for a big move late in the race, like 2 laps to go or something like that, and just wasn't able to get to Luke's bumper, and that was that was the first time that Luke ran away from the field in that second moto. The second moto, I guess in the beginning, like before cautions and stuff like that, Roman had a few times where he'd run away with the lead, but after that, like from the midpoint of the race till like the last lap, the lead battle was pretty much a toss-up. So Moto 2 is pretty crazy. But that's how it ended up. Vulcan coming home in third again, so staying real consistent. And yeah, it's going to be a really good kickoff for Hunter's season. Obviously, he missed Week 1, but a really solid round 3 here. Really solid start to Week 2. See how we can follow it up in the next race. And same thing goes for Vulcan, except for the fact that obviously Vulcan was at Week 1, but Vulcan's Week 1 was kind of inconsistent. Had some good finishes and had some not so good finishes in there. Wasn't able to keep the consistency. Complete opposite here going into round number 3, as we see him 3-3, very consistent, picking up his first podiums on the season. Running at the top 5 for Moto 2 was Roman in 4th and Armada in 5th, so a lot of switch-ups. The top 3 remained the same. Interesting how that stayed, the same. I mean, at least as far as Barvo went, we saw that again here for round 3. But the 4th and 5th place spots, all these other positions, switching up quite a bit. Now we go to the overall points for this round. Luke obviously taking the overall win, going to have 83 points total. Hunter with 75, taking that second. Vulcan third with 70. Slaunch coming in 4th with 66. Armada coming in 5th with 63. Camby 6th, just barely missing out on that top 5, 62. Opix 7th with 61, so very tight right there. Roman 8th with 59. That first moto really costed him. Could have had a way better night. Jared 9th with 56. Shift tied him up with 56, and Sector rounding out the field with 52. So moving on to round number 4, Vengerberg Raceway. Interesting how this pairing of tracks worked out, because they're quite different when you look at them, but the way the tracks ran were in a way similar. Very big crossover, very big like slide job focus on both of these tracks for the most part, even though they are quite different tracks in the way that they're built, so that worked out pretty interestingly. For the first moto here at Vengerberg, Luke was able to repeat again, take the win. Slaunch coming in 2nd, Opix 3rd, Roman 4th, and Camby rounding out the top 5. So already switching things up a lot from what we saw in the previous round. And yeah, as far as first moto in Vengerberg went, it was actually like probably one of the more like usual motos this season for as far as first motos go. If that makes sense, like usually first motos are a little bit less intensive with the battling. That's generally like settled in the heats, and then Moto 2 you get some of that back. That hasn't been the case this season, except for this first moto at Vengerberg. A lot of drivers seem to be not going for like as crazy the moves. They were trying to like, get separated from the rest of the pack and get those solid finishes, and it ended up working out, especially for the top 3 in Moto 1. Those guys just ran away with it pretty much. Did get pretty close at the end, though. The battle between Luke and Slaunch came down to literally the last corner. Slaunch had some really good gains throughout the middle part of the race, and also Shift coming up his lap traffic with like the last 1 or 2 laps to go made things really interesting, and they ended up duking it out in the last quarter. Luke was able to get it with the outside run, but it was super close. Now we go to Moto 2. Luke able to repeat here with another sweep with the Moto win. Not coming as easily. Pretty sure that battle Ended up working his way through the pack early in the race. Got up to first and second, battled with Vulcan for a long time. Vulcan battled with a couple drivers for a long time in this moto. Luke and Opix just had like 20 lap long battles with them. It was really weird. But eventually Luke was able to get in front of Vulcan with a comfortable enough lead, and then run with a pretty comfortable win until the end. We'll get to that in a second. Second place did end up going to Vulcan. He was able to recover, had some close calls in this moto with some of his moves, and that was sort of the case in Portland too. Vulcan honestly probably could have pulled off a couple moto wins, but just a few like key mistakes for him for both of these races. He had a few instances in Portland where he'd like go for a crossover, mistime it. Same thing at Vengerberg where he'd just like, you know, lose it on one lap, and he was really close. And if he could like patch up some of those mistakes, he was like right there in the potential for a moto win or even like a second place. So I mean, obviously he got the second place here. He could have got a couple more at Portland with a few less of those mistakes too. So Vulcan like really close to being a contender for a win here. Roman taking that third place spot, having a much better overall here, and finally stepping up. I've been kind of waiting for Roman to get in this position. Had a really good first oval season, and Roman was one of the more consistent drivers in that. So I expected him to be like right there in this one. But the first couple of rounds, that obviously was not the case. But finally here at Vengerberg, he got the consistency down. Had a crazy Moto2 drive, made a lot of passes, under green flag as well, and then also had a really nice move that cemented his overall race, his overall finish pretty much, with the green-white checkered that came late. So that's pretty much what it came down to for him. Really nice moves through green, and that set him up for another nice move in GWC. Could have had a chance at the second or the win, honestly, with how good the move was. Then we go down to fourth was Camby. Opix with that fifth place spot, rounding out the top five there. And yeah, this Vengerberg second moto was, you know, a lot more moves throughout the entire green flag run, and then it ended up coming down to a green white checkered at the very end, similar to that Yeti Moto 2. Luke able to clutch it out, but it got really close. Like all these positions, like from fourth place onward, there was like 4 or 5 drivers that were like photo finish worthy. Had to go back and check a lot of those spots because the finish was close. We had a double wide photo finish and a 3 wide photo finish, so I had to figure those out. Now the overall, Luke of course going to take the overall with the 84 points. Roman with the 69 points going to take that second place overall spot. And yeah, the overall points very, very close. Sorry about the order here. The reason this is confusing, you got to remember that the bonus points don't factor into the overall finish. That's why it looks like Slaunch is going to get that fourth place overall or whatever, but ends up getting the sixth. That is something to remember with this season that keeps things interesting. Bonus points added on after the fact, not calculated in the overall finish. So as we go through this too, so Roman 69 second. Opix third overall with 68, and then fourth, fifth, and sixth, 67, 67, 67. Vulcan, Camby, and Slaunch, so close. And then a big gap, but then it gets really close again. Hunter with 58 with that 7th place. Sector 8th, Shift 9th, Armada 10th, all 56. And then Jared 11th with the 54. So yeah, as far as overall race goes, Vengerberg had to have the closest overall results. Of course, you have the exception of Luke with the overall win, and I guess Jared a little bit farther towards the bottom, but even then he's not far off the 56s, so like Luke's the only exception here. For as far as everybody else went, like this was a really close race as far as the overall battle is concerned, so that was pretty sweet. Definitely the closest like overall points battle that we've seen all season throughout the entire pack. So now if we go over here to the standings, obviously with Detail and Real Dull missing, that's going to make things interesting with Hunter and Shift showing up as well. So with these 4 drivers, if they show up for the rest of the season, it's going to be hard to tell where they're going to end up with those mulligans, so we're just going to have to be patient there. Obviously, Detail's still in a good spot, even though he's not going to get the mulligans, because he still has 4 wins in his belt, hasn't lost a race yet that he showed up to, so if he shows up for the rest of the season, still not in too bad of a position, even though he doesn't get the mulligans. As far as the rest of the drivers go that have showed up to all the races, we have 9 of them. Luke's going to be in the lead with 316, and then Vulcan actually making moves this week. 2nd place with 265. Had a really good week. Podiums in there, top 5s, really close drives, almost getting the win, and his plus minus is also really solid. 3rd best plus minus of the entire field. That's a stat that I like to look at. So yeah, Vulcan's been having a really good oval season so far. Slaunch really close behind him though. in third place with 263. A little bit of inconsistency throughout his finishes, but despite that, still winding up third place in points. So you can't really complain too much, even with the inconsistency. He's still right there. Opix, fourth place with 255. I'd say like similar story of Slaunch, some inconsistency in there, but still like really close, and like, you know, only a 10-point gap here. That's close. That's like a moto, you know, a bad moto for a driver, a good moto for another driver. That could easily be made up. Roman, fifth place with 250. You know, about right where I'd expect him, but we'll have to see how Roman goes for the rest of this oval season for the second half, because he was very strong in the first oval season. He had kind of a rocky start here, but even with that rocky start, he still winds up in fifth place. So definitely a lot more races here to get some more consistent finishes and maybe make up some more points. Camby, sixth with 245. He could have had a way better week. Camby, even though his finishes weren't the greatest, he had some times where it looked like he might have even been competing for a moto win in these motos, and then something would go wrong and he'd lose some time and fall back from there. But I don't think Camby's like too far off. If he can, like, same thing I kind of said with Vulcan, if he can like iron out some of those mistakes, Camby could be back up to competing for those moto wins again. Again, Camby was very good, got a lot of wins in the first oval season. So I wouldn't, and he's always been like pretty good at ovals, so I wouldn't expect him to be like too bad from here on out. He's had like a rocky start, did a lot better here at week 2, and hopefully he can keep that up and get some of those mistakes ironed out, bring it back here, and like these guys again, second through sixth is all. That's 20 points. That's not a lot, and with 6 races left, easily could be made up. So these guys are really close. And then Armada is at the edge of that pack in 7th with 238 with his, you know, return season. And obviously, I don't think it's too surprising that he's at the edge of that pack. I think Armada can be competitive with that pack. He just needs to figure some things out. And obviously, it's unfortunate he comes off one of his worst finishes. That second moto at Vengerberg definitely hurt him quite a bit, or his worst finish. I think he got last, so that hurt him. Yeah, that hurt him a lot. If he gets like an 8th or a 7th place there, he's like right there with Camby. So that would have made a big difference there for Armada, and I think he just needs to shake that finish off and get right back to it. He's already had a lot of good motos. He's shown some promise. He's had some good speed. He had a really good drive in the heat race, actually, for Vengerberg as well. So Armada has had some good runs, and he's not out of it yet. He is at the back of this pack, but not too far off. Still in striking distance. Needs to rebound next week. Put him back in that conversation. Then we go down to 8th, which is Sector, 8th and 9th, Sector and Jared. Sector, because of his heat win at Barvo, is still holding on to that edge over Jared, which is just hilarious. The most exciting points battle of the season, if you will. And then you have the drivers that have not made all the races. Detail, obviously, going to lead all those down. All those drivers down with 168. Surprisingly, Hunter not too far off of Real Deal. Real Deal with 139, Hunter with 133. Makes sense because Hunter had a really good round 3, but his round 4 wasn't as strong. So Real Deal would end up in front of him, but Hunter is in competitive distance. And, you know, if you look at his points and look at where some of these drivers are, Hunter with some other good finishes could be like right in this conversation too, where Real Deal probably is. And then Shift with 112 could be competitive with Sector and Jared, which would be pretty entertaining. Three-way battle there. So that's pretty much all I've got here. Oh yeah, if we take the quick look at the schedule, there you go. Potential, most drivers agreeing to the extra week, so we could see the extra week coming into play. Next week, hopefully we'll have some more info on that, like what the tracks could be and stuff like that, so we can get that all ready to go. And then obviously, hopefully get that other track in there for week 4. Had to make some adjustments in the schedule here, but hopefully not going to be adjusting too much for week number 3. Should be Capua Dome and Rixon Raceway, which is going to be interesting because Rixon is like its own thing. It's a very different type of track in the way that it runs, made by Fireball, I believe. And then Capua has like one of the most insanely like just fast cushions for how small of a track it is. The cushion absolutely rails. And you have to make some insane dive bombs to the inside. But what makes Capua interesting is that it probably hurts your time the most to go for those moves. So, for example, if there's like a lead battle and the guy in second makes a move for the lead, it's going to cost, like you get off that cushion for 1 lap, it costs a lot of time. So it could allow some people to catch back into the race, as long as, like, the key to Capua is to not let, as with most cushion tracks, I would say, is to let the leader not get away. If you can make sure the leader doesn't get away, then you have a really, really good shot for anybody on that track. And I think Capua and Rixon are going to be some crazy races and unpredictable. Definitely want to see people show up to those. and stay tuned for the VODs as well, because yeah, I think it's going to be pretty fun. 2 new sets of tracks that are different in their own ways and should keep the season interesting. And then, of course, we have Chili Cup, which I think I wanted that to be the final race, so I may move that down to 10. So that's one thing I'll say right now. I might move that down to 10, and then we'll have to get these other ones sorted out. But that's all I got for now. After next week, hopefully we can unveil what those extra tracks in the schedule should be, and hopefully we can be set on them from that point on. And yeah, race videos are on YouTube for this week with the timestamps and all that stuff, so if you guys missed it, check them out. Hope you enjoyed the recap. Hope you're all up to date, and see you next time.